Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Gingelbach, president of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. We are very blessed this morning to have Governor Greg Abbott with us to provide us a bit of an update on what's going on with COVID. We have a short time with him, so we're going to dive into this pretty quickly. The governor, Greg Abbott, is the 48th governor of the great state of Texas, and continues to build on his long record as a conservative leader who fights to preserve Texas values like faith, family, and freedom. Under Governor Abbott's strong leadership and careful stewardship of the 10th largest economy in the world, the Lone Star State leads the nation in job creation and recently reached record low unemployment rates before COVID, that is. He had an amazing legislative session in the 86th legislative session year before last, where all of his priorities were addressed: property tax reforms, investing in our classrooms and our teachers, keeping Texas students safe, and combating human trafficking, sexual assault. The list goes on and on. I want to be able to hand it over to him quickly, so that he can be able to say a few things. I do want to say he's Wichita Falls born, raised in Duncanville, and after graduating from University of Texas at Austin, he earned his law degree from Vanderbilt, where I came from Nashville. He is one of two governors that are Commodores, I found out recently. So I think there's 13 total governors that have graduated from Vanderbilt in some form or fashion. His amazing wife, Cecilia, former school teacher and principal, the first Hispanic lady of Texas, first lady of Texas. They were married in 1981, and they have a daughter, Audrey. So, Governor, know you're busy. You got 1,000 things. Thank you so much. We'll hand it over to you to make a few remarks on the latest going on with COVID and vaccine distributions in Texas. Thank you.
Sure. First of all, thank you very much, Brandon. And it's great to join everybody here today. There's so many things I could say in preface, but I know the time is short. So let me get right to the point so that I can get to questions that some of you all have. First, it's just the fabulous news is that vaccines have arrived, and there are thousands of people who've already received vaccines in the state of Texas. You should see next week a second manufacturer of vaccines, Moderna, is going to be approved for the quick distribution. So during the course of this month alone, we will have Pfizer and Moderna providing vaccines. Texas should receive this month about the same number of vaccines as the total number of people who have contracted COVID-19 since it began in the state of Texas. And so we are quickly going to be able to address and arrest the spread of COVID-19, especially when you couple in with that the antibody therapeutic drugs that are now available. These are the types of drugs that President Trump was able to take and very quickly overcome the challenges of COVID-19. Everybody who's taken it, including some people I know right there in Fort Worth who've taken these antibody therapeutic drugs, have said that they have felt better than ever before. And so I know for a fact these drugs help, and when you combine these drugs with the vaccines, what it will mean is that Texas is now in the 9th inning of dealing with the challenges of COVID-19. And so we are looking forward to very rapidly getting ready for our economy to get back going and growing again. Brandon mentioned how we had the lowest unemployment rate in the history of the state of Texas before COVID struck. And I think that we will be back at that very same status by the end of this next year. I think 2021 will be one of the best economic years the state of Texas has ever had. Part of it will because we will be coming out of the COVID situation, what I believe, very rapidly. But also part of it is what I know is in the pipeline for economic development projects. Many of you have seen so many of the news stories that have been taking place, whether it be the most recent one last week about Oracle moving its headquarters to the state of Texas, or Hewlett Packard Enterprise moving its headquarters to Texas, or what will happen next month, not too far from Fort Worth, and that is the grand opening of the new headquarters for Charles Schwab and so many others that are taking place. As we are talking right now, the state of Texas has more than 200 economic development projects in our pipeline, some of which will still be completed before the end of this year, others of which will be completed over the course of next year. But everyone right now wants to locate their business in the state of Texas because the state of Texas is the best state in which to do business. And one reason for that is because of local entities like what you have there in Fort Worth do such a tremendous job of attracting and supporting our businesses and business leaders coming to Fort Worth and coming to the state of Texas. So I want to thank you and applaud you for the tremendous efforts that you put in. And just know that we will be there working with you side by side as we always have, knowing that bringing businesses to the state of Texas and growing the businesses that are already here as a team effort and working together as a team, we will continue to keep Texas #1 for economic development. A couple of quick items that I want to mention for the upcoming session, and then we'll take a few questions. One is we do want to make sure we continue to keep Texas on the pathway of prosperity. And one way that we can do that is by having this intense focus on getting people back to work, an intense focus on job creation. Another thing that we can do is to assist all these businesses that have been having to pay unemployment benefits, and the unemployment benefit rate has skyrocketed. We need to work together to find some solutions for that. But that point aside, we want to make sure that we're able to pass a budget this session that ensures that there are no new taxes that will be contained in there, so that everybody will be able to keep more of their own money. And that is exactly one of the reasons why so many people are coming to the state of Texas, and that is because our taxes are low. In fact, so much so, Brandon was talking about some of the things we did last session. One thing that we did, we passed a constitutional amendment banning an income tax in Texas. And that means a lot to all these people who are choosing to come here, because state income taxes and local income taxes are so high in the states they are fleeing from. The second thing we want to do is to make sure that we maintain safe communities for our residents and for our businesses. And that means fulfilling something that I've been talking about for several months now, and that is making sure that we prevent any defunding of police, but instead of doing that, we recommit to funding our law enforcement to make sure that we have the people and personnel we need to keep our community safe. I find it also important that we step up and finally do something about homelessness in our state. Part of that means banning these camping things that you see, whether it be in Fort Worth, but you see it prolifically in Austin, Texas, and some other cities. And homeless camping is something that's not compassionate. It doesn't help people to live, sleep, and defecate wherever they want to. We need to find real solutions that will assist the homeless, but also at the same time, making sure that our streets are as safe as they possibly can be. And then we also want to address healthcare challenges. One thing we've learned over the course of COVID, and that is we do have ongoing healthcare-based issues. And one thing that we want to make sure that we make clear is the policy and the law in the state of Texas, and that is it doesn't matter what healthcare plan exists out there. Texans will always be able to make sure that they have pre-existing conditions covered by healthcare insurance. So no one will go without that coverage. But another thing that we need to do, both business-wise and healthcare-wise, is to make sure that we pass liability protection reform, so that all these businesses that have opened up will know that they will be able to do so without facing an onslaught of lawsuits that could crush their businesses. And then the last thing along the healthcare lines is proven to be very popular during the course of COVID that we want to continue, and that is telemedicine. This is very favorable for patients and consumers because it's so much easier for many of them to be able to visit with their doctor over the telephone or through Skype or whatever the case may be. And it's also good for medical practices. And so you can expect that to be a hot topic item for which there's already been multiple pieces of legislation filed. I could go on, but I may not be addressing the questions you really want to hear about. So Brandon, why don't I pause right here, right now, and let you start asking those questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Governor. This is a great update. So a couple of questions in the time we have left. I think the first one that we continue to get, and I know you get a lot, is, okay, vaccines are being distributed to frontline workers first and those that are at high risk. When can the Brandon Gingelbachs of the world, university students, others, when can they expect to start receiving vaccine?
So let me give you the context for my answer, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. that there is one primary goal to be achieved with regard to vaccines, and that is to prevent loss of life. The person in charge of this entire process at the federal level is General Perna. I was with him with the Operation Warp Speed Task Force when we made a public presentation last week. And General Perna made clear one thing, and that is we have one singular goal, as you would expect in a military mission, and that is to save lives. And the thing here, and that is there's an easy mathematical calculation about who is most likely to lose their life because of COVID. And it's all based upon age, as well as you could layer in what's called some comorbidities, which are pre-existing conditions that would make somebody more susceptible to losing their life just because of diabetes or other types of challenges like that. So here's the deal. After we get through the frontline healthcare workers who are exposed to it constantly, and then as we get through the process of vaccinating those who are in nursing home settings, who've also proven to be the most likely to be hospitalized as well as the most likely to lose their lives, it largely will be based upon age categories. The math is clear, and that is if you are age 80 or older, you are like 5, 10, maybe 20 times more likely to lose your life because of COVID and wind up in a hospital for a long period of time because of COVID. The next category that's most probable of losing their life and staying in a hospital for a long time will be those age 70 and older. So this candidly is not rocket science. This is the type of mathematical probability that a high school student could learn, where you want to get the biggest bang for your buck when you provide these vaccines. As we all know, similarly, like you mentioned, college students, for example. Do college students contract and spread COVID-19? The answer is absolutely yes. But we have seen repeatedly that the college students are not dealing with the same dire life-threatening consequences from contracting COVID-19 as you would see for somebody in a nursing home, or that you would see for someone age 80 or 70 or older. And so we will get these out in ways that will do the most to reduce fatalities, to reduce hospitalizations, and those two factors alone will move the needle the most as it concerns getting back to normal as far as business is concerned. The last thing I'll tell you about this, and that is understand that the number of vaccines that are coming at a very rapid pace, a pace that will continue to increase. Over the course of January, February, March, for example, we will be getting enough vaccines where we will, at a minimum, be able to vaccinate about 10% of the Texas population per month. When you add that to the 20% of the Texas population that already has the antibodies to be able to defeat COVID, you will see that in just a couple of months, we will be at the 50% mark of the number of people in the state of Texas who have the physical capability of not contracting COVID, or at least being able to defeat COVID. And these are people that will not have to go to hospital. They would be people whose lives will not be compromised. And what you will see because of that, just because of the sheer math of it, and that is the spread of COVID-19 is going to be dropping very rapidly. Hospitalizations will begin dropping very rapidly. We just need to get past the Christmas time when we know there will be a lot of gatherings. And once we get past that Christmas time and the gatherings where spread could occur, I do expect to see very promising results on a daily basis going forward. And that means very promising results with regard to getting back to business in the state of Texas.
Thanks, Governor. You mentioned last week being in DC, and I know that you were chatting with the White House about vaccines and being able to get an increased amount of those, as well as being able to get funding for the states and to deal with the COVID-19 challenges. How did those meetings go? How was it received?
Very well. And so I was there last week, and then I was just returned last night from a 2-day visit where I had the opportunity to visit with the leaders of Operation Warp Speed. So the vaccines, Kennedy, Texas is getting a very large share of vaccines, and we should be grateful for the percentage that we are getting. And one reason for that is because Texas was labeled as being the best state for being prepared for these vaccine distribution. Texas has more than 7,500 providers already lined up to be able to distribute these vaccines across the state. And so we were meticulous, we were well prepared, and we were applauded and rewarded for being so effective in our vaccine response. Another issue that came up that the White House White House coronavirus team and Operation Warp Speed did want to emphasize, and they did so the last 2 days, and that is we as a state and as a country must do a better job of making sure that we distribute these antibody therapeutic drugs. There are a lot of antibody therapeutic drugs in Fort Worth, Texas, as we speak right now, that are sitting on shelves as opposed to being provided to patients. These antibody therapeutic drugs help patients quickly overcome the ravages of COVID-19, and we're working on strategies as we speak to make sure that we are distributing those antibody therapeutic drugs to the locations that will provide them to the patients who need them the most. But we are very, very well situated in all of these strategies to make sure that Texas is going to be able to quickly get out of the confines of COVID-19 and get back to business.
So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, Governor. I know that the state right now has CARES Act funding that it is currently deploying. Will any of that funding or resources be seen at the local level?
Well, it is. Some of it has already been seen. Others of it will be seen. For this audience we're talking to right now, you got to know this math, and that is when the original CARES Act funding was provided, it was provided in two different ways. One way was for the large counties and cities to receive their own direct allocation of CARES Act funding. And that would include Fort Worth, that would include Tarrant County, it would include the city of Dallas, it would include Dallas County. They all received their own separate allocation of CARES Act funding. The state received allocation for the state as well as for the smaller communities. Think of Parker County, think of Wichita County and places like that that the state is working with. And so there's a bifurcated pathway there. That said, I think you all probably know there are discussions today that are being very fruitful where they are looking at additional CARES Act funding. It looks like as we speak right now, most of that CARES Act funding is going to go to targeted purposes, such as assisting those who are unemployed, as well as certain other strategies. It doesn't look like the CARES Act funding that will pass before the end of this year is going to provide any additional direct funding to local governments. It seems like the House and Senate simply are unable to agree upon that. That said, I've seen comments ranging from Leader McConnell to Chuck Schumer to Nancy Pelosi all agree with the notion that when they come back in January, they will be addressing those needs and those challenges. And the numbers that I've seen them talking about would be a very large, robust amount of money that should fully address the financial needs of local and state governments.
That's so encouraging. Governor, last question. It's been tremendous these past few months. Would love to hear from your standpoint. What have we learned through this? What have we done well as a state? And then conversely, have there been any gaps or areas that have been shown through this process that have made us more aware to deal better with these types of things down the road?
So both with regard to the gap as well as the biggest thing we learned, listen, the United States of America and all the states in the United States of America were exposed for coming into a pandemic completely ill-prepared or unprepared to deal with a pandemic. And what I mean by this, and this is the biggest lesson learned, and that is everything that we needed from the beginning of this pandemic had been farmed out to other countries, whether it be PPE, whether it be the type of medical supplies that we needed, whether it be the medical treatments, or you remember those nasal swabs that you had in your nose to test for COVID-19? They all came from other countries. And then the medicines themselves were prepared in other countries. And so one thing that we've learned, and that is when it comes to what I'll categorize as critical infrastructure. Infrastructure means more than just roads and stuff like that. Critical infrastructure also means medicine and healthcare. And that is, we can no longer farm out to other countries our reliance upon those other countries to manufacture and to prepare and to deliver the critical healthcare infrastructure that we need. The response in the country and the response that we would have gotten in the state of Texas would have been far faster, far more robust, and far more effective if we had our own capabilities of being able to do that. Now, the good news is, as we speak today, the state of Texas has lined up our own manufacturing capabilities of PPE, one of which is located in Tarrant County, Texas. And there's another location in another part of the state of Texas. And so we will never be dependent upon any other country in the future for reliance upon PPE in an emergency type situation. We are far better equipped going into any potential future pandemic. That said, listen, one thing that everybody must recognize, and that is Operation Warp Speed that created these vaccines. This is an all-time record in the turnaround of a vaccine that was able to cure a virus like this that shut down our country. And so we learned that we do have the capability of stepping up and swiftly coming up with solutions to make sure we are able to crush the coronavirus. And so it is a feat of medical science to see what they were able to achieve by having so many effective vaccines. I'll just close with this so you can know how effective it is. The typical flu vaccine, a shot that many of you took earlier this year, has an effective rate of about 50%. The effectiveness rate of these COVID vaccines that are coming out by Pfizer and Moderna have a 95% effectiveness rate. That's stunning and shocking to everybody, including the doctors who are involved in the process. And so, once again, the United States of America is leading in medical advancements that will lead to solutions that will help us conquer COVID. But we will never again rely upon foreign countries for our essential medical needs.
Governor, thank you so much. We're so blessed to have you. It says so much that you'd leverage Zoom and technology to come into the homes of Fort Worth and Tarrant County. Thanks for doing that and providing an update. We appreciate you and your leadership. And we know, as you mentioned, we've got great days ahead of us with vaccines coming and with the pipeline of activity. Our fingers are crossed for brighter and better days for all of us in Texas. So thank you, Governor. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you to those of us who joined from your house or your office, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Take care. Merry Christmas.